They didn't find out from a confession. They found out from a spoon. A spoon that should have been clean, but under the light, it carried invisible traces of something no one in that house was supposed to ever touch again. By the time the truth came out, the house was already silent. Not the peaceful kind of silent, the kind that happens when an entire family stops answering questions forever. And the only person still breathing in that home was the one everyone trusted the most. Her name was never supposed to be remembered like this. A mother. A wife. The center of a modest home where neighbors always said, "She keeps everything together." But behind closed doors, something inside her had started to break in ways no one could see. This story is based on real-life inspired events that shocked investigators when they finally connected the dots. It all began slowly. A tired husband who started complaining about stomach pain after dinner. A child who suddenly stopped going to school, saying they felt weak all the time. Then another child collapsing during a normal morning routine. Doctors were confused. Tests came back inconsistent. Nothing pointed clearly to a cause. The family was told it might be stress, maybe food contamination, maybe coincidence. But coincidence doesn't usually follow the same house. And it doesn't usually last for months. Still, no one suspected her, because she was always the one caring for them. She cooked every meal. She poured every drink. She insisted they all eat together, smiling softly like nothing in the world could go wrong. Even the neighbors admired her devotion. "She's a strong woman," they would say, holding that family together all by herself. But investigators would later realize something chilling. She wasn't holding the family together. She was controlling every single thing that entered their bodies. The turning point came when the youngest child survived a sudden collapse and was rushed to the hospital. This time, doctors ran deeper toxicology tests, and what they found didn't make sense at first. There were traces of a harmful substance in the child's system, small amounts, repeated over time. Not an accident. Not food poisoning. Something deliberate. The hospital alerted authorities. At first, police considered outside sources. Contaminated water. A bad supplier. Environmental exposure. But then they noticed something else. Every single episode happened at home. And every episode followed meals prepared by one person, the mother. When detectives arrived, she was calm. Too calm. She offered them tea. She asked if they were hungry. She even joked about how stressful parenting could be. Nothing about her matched the chaos that was quietly unfolding inside her own household. But calm can sometimes hide the most dangerous storms. The investigation moved quietly at first. Food samples were taken from the home. Utensils were collected. Medical records were compared. And then the pattern became impossible to ignore. The same substance found in the child was appearing in trace amounts across multiple meals over time. Not enough to kill instantly, but enough to weaken. Enough to confuse doctors. Enough to make the family dependent on sickness explanations instead of looking at cause. The father's condition had also worsened over time, though slowly. Fatigue. Dizziness. Strange stomach issues that never fully made sense. And the mother? She had no symptoms at all. That detail alone made investigators pause. Because everyone else was getting sick. Except her. When confronted again, she didn't panic. She didn't cry. She simply said, "Are you saying I poisoned my own family?" A long silence followed. Because detectives had learned something important in cases like this. Denying it loudly is common, but denying it calmly while the evidence builds is something else entirely. The final breakthrough came from the kitchen. A hidden container, tucked behind ordinary household supplies, contained traces consistent with what was found in the victim's systems. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't obvious. It looked like something that had been placed there with a confidence that no one would ever think to look. That's when everything collapsed. The questioning that followed lasted hours. At first, she repeated the same line. "I take care of my family. Why would I hurt them?" But as the evidence was laid out piece by piece, the hospital reports, the food patterns, the timing, her voice began to change. Smaller, quieter, less certain. And then finally, she said something that stopped the room. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." That was the moment investigators realized this wasn't a random act. It wasn't a one-time decision. It had been happening over time, slowly, repeatedly, until the line between intention and destruction had already been crossed too many times to undo. What pushed her there was never fully clear in public reports. Some said it was financial pressure. Others suggested long-term emotional breakdown. Some believed it was a hidden psychological struggle that no one around her recognized in time. But none of those explanations changed what had already happened inside that home. A father left permanently weakened. Children who survived but would carry trauma for life. And a family structure completely shattered from the inside. The most disturbing part for investigators wasn't just the act itself. It was how normal everything looked while it was happening. Meals still cooked. Clothes still washed. Laughter still heard from the house sometimes. A perfect image, sitting directly on top of something deadly. In court, she rarely looked up. The same woman neighbors once described as peaceful, now sat facing the consequences of a life no one believed she was capable of leading. And when the verdict was finally read, there was no dramatic reaction. No collapse. No outburst. Just silence. The kind of silence that had already defined the entire case from the beginning. And in the end, what stayed with everyone who heard the story wasn't just the crime itself. It was the realization that sometimes danger doesn't enter a home from outside. Sometimes it lives in the center of it, wearing the face of the person who makes dinner every night.